Did you know that 98% of you watching aren't subscribed yet? If you enjoy our terrifying tales and want to keep the chills coming, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
A Bavarian backdrop, Hinterkaifeck in 1922. Hinterkaifeck. Even the name sounds isolated. This small farm, nestled in the rolling hills of Bavaria, Germany, was a place of quiet labor. The year was 1922. A chill settled over the farm as winter approached. Fields lay fallow, their bounty harvested. The farmhouse, weathered but sturdy, stood as the only sign of life for miles. Little did anyone know, a darkness was about to descend upon this seemingly peaceful setting. The nearest village, Grobenried, was over a mile away. This isolation was both a comfort and a curse for the residents of Hinterkaifeck. It provided peace, but also made them vulnerable. The farm was a world unto itself, its inhabitants cut off from the outside world. As the days grew shorter, a sense of unease settled upon the farm. The thick forests surrounding the property seemed to press in closer, their shadows stretching long and ominous. The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it whispers of something sinister. The isolation of Hinterkaifeck, once a source of tranquility, now felt oppressive. It was as if the farm itself held its breath, bracing for the horrors to come. The Gruber family faces of a farmhouse tragedy. This is a story that has haunted the annals of history, a tale of mystery and sorrow that unfolded in the quiet countryside of Bavaria. 6 souls called Hinterkaifeck home. This remote farmhouse, nestled in the heart of rural Germany, was more than just a dwelling. It was a world unto itself, isolated and self-sufficient. Andreas Gruber, the patriarch, was a man of strict routine and few words. His stern demeanor and unyielding nature were well known in the community, a man who commanded respect and at times, fear. His wife, Casilia, was known for her quiet strength and devotion to her family. She was the glue that held the household together, her resilience a silent testament to the hardships of rural life. Their daughter Victoria, a recent widow, lived with them alongside her 2 young children, 7-year-old Casilia and 2-year-old Joseph. Victoria's life had been marked by loss and hardship, yet she remained a pillar of strength for her children. Completing the household was Maria Baumgartner, the maid, who had arrived only days before the tragedy. Maria, a young woman seeking a new beginning, had no inkling of the fate that awaited her. Life on the farm was simple, governed by the rhythms of nature and the demands of farm work. The days were long and filled with toil, but there was a sense of purpose and routine that brought a semblance of order to their lives. Andreas, a stern man, was known to rule his household with an iron fist. His strictness was both a source of stability and tension, a double-edged sword that kept the family in line but also created an atmosphere of fear. His wife, Casilia, bore the brunt of his harsh temperament, finding solace in her children and the daily chores. Her life was a constant balancing act, managing the household while navigating her husband's moods. Victoria, still grieving the loss of her husband, clung fiercely to her children, their laughter the only brightness in her world. Her love for them was a beacon of hope in an otherwise bleak existence. Little Casilia, a curious and playful child, brought a spark of joy to the often somber household. Her innocence and energy were a reminder of the simple pleasures of life, even in the face of adversity. Joseph, just a toddler, was doted on by all, his innocent eyes oblivious to the darkness lurking around them. His presence was a source of light, a symbol of the future and the continuity of life. Maria, the new maid, was a welcome addition to the family. Her arrival brought a breath of fresh air to the household, a new face and a new energy that was much needed. Hardworking and cheerful, she quickly settled into her role, bringing a sense of normalcy to the household. Her presence was a comfort, a sign that life could go on despite the hardships. She had no way of knowing that her time at Hinterkaifeck would be tragically short-lived. The events that would soon unfold would cast a long shadow over the farmhouse, turning it from a place of life and routine into a scene of unspeakable horror. The farmhouse, once a symbol of hard work and family, would become a silent witness to a tragedy that would baffle investigators and haunt the memories of those who knew the Grubers. Time seemed to stand still in Hinterkaifeck, the echoes of the past lingering in the air, a constant reminder of the lives that were abruptly and violently cut short. The mystery of what happened on that fateful night remains unsolved, a dark chapter in the history of this quiet farmhouse. The questions linger, the answers elusive, as the shadows of Hinterkaifeck continue to whisper their secrets. And so the story of the Gruber family endures, a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of mystery. The faces of the farmhouse tragedy remain etched in history, their legacy a poignant testament to the human spirit's resilience in the face of unimaginable sorrow. Whispers and shadows, unexplained events at the farm. In the weeks leading up to the fateful night, strange occurrences plagued Hinterkaifeck. The farm, nestled in the Bavarian countryside, had always been a place of hard work and simple living. But recently, an unsettling atmosphere had begun to envelop the farmstead. Andreas found footprints in the snow leading to the farm, but none going back. It was as if someone had arrived but never left. The sight of those solitary footprints, stark against the pristine snow, sent a chill down his spine. Household items went missing, only to reappear in odd places. A spoon would vanish from the kitchen, only to be found days later in the barn. A lantern would disappear from the shed, only to turn up in the attic. These small but inexplicable events began to wear on the family's nerves. Footsteps echoed from the attic when it should have been empty. The sound of heavy boots pacing back and forth above their heads became a nightly occurrence. Andreas would climb the creaky stairs, lantern in hand, only to find the attic empty and silent. Fear began to grip the family. Whispers of a malevolent presence circulated. The children spoke of shadows moving in the corners of their rooms, and the adults couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The once cozy farmhouse now felt like a prison. One evening, as the family gathered for dinner, a set of keys jangled on the hook by the door, as if someone unseen had just entered. The sound was unmistakable, and everyone froze, their eyes darting to the door. The door, however, remained firmly shut. No one had come in, and no one had left. The keys continued to jangle for a moment longer before falling silent, leaving the family in a tense, uneasy silence. A cold draft swept through the house, extinguishing the oil lamp on the table, plunging them into darkness. The sudden loss of light heightened their fear, and they huddled together, straining to hear any other signs of an intruder. Andreas, his weathered face creased with worry, searched the house and surrounding grounds. He found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no strangers lurking in the shadows. It was as if the farm itself was playing tricks on them. The family gathered around the fireplace, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. The warmth of the fire did little to dispel the cold fear that had settled in their hearts. Little Casilia, her eyes wide with fear, clutched at her mother's skirt. She had always been a brave child, but the recent events had shaken her to the core. "There's a bad man in the attic," she whispered, her words sending shivers down their spines. The adults exchanged worried glances, knowing that children often sense things that adults could not. Andreas tried to reassure his family, attributing the strange events to the harsh winter and their isolated location. He spoke of the wind and the cold, of animals seeking shelter, but his words rang hollow even to his own ears. However, deep down, a seed of doubt had been sown. He couldn't shake the feeling that something more sinister was at play. The farm, once a place of solace and safety, now felt like a trap. Something was amiss at Hinterkaifeck. The farm seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next inexplicable event. The family could only hope that whatever was haunting them would soon reveal itself, and that they would be ready to face it. A night of unthinkable horror. The murders at Hinterkaifeck. The night of March 31st, 1922 descended upon Hinterkaifeck like a shroud. The small, isolated farmstead located in the Bavarian countryside of Germany was home to the Gruber family. The family consisted of Andreas Gruber, his wife Casilia, their widowed daughter Victoria, and her two children, Casilia and Joseph. They lived a quiet, unassuming life, far removed from the bustling cities. A blizzard raged outside, blanketing the farmhouse in an eerie silence. The wind howled through the trees, creating an unsettling atmosphere that seemed to foreshadow the horrors to come. The snow piled high against the walls of the farmhouse, isolating it even further from the outside world. Inside, the family, oblivious to the horror that awaited, prepared for bed. They went about their nightly routines, unaware that their lives were about to be brutally cut short. The warmth of the fireplace and the soft glow of the lanterns provided a false sense of security. One by one, the lights in the farmhouse were extinguished. The family members retreated to their respective rooms, seeking the comfort of sleep. Little did they know the darkness that enveloped their home was not just the absence of light, but a harbinger of death. The only sound was the howling wind and the soft murmur of prayers. The family, devout in their faith, sought solace in their nightly prayers, hoping for protection and peace. But on this night, their prayers would go unanswered. Unbeknownst to the unsuspecting family, an intruder lurked in the shadows of the barn. This figure, shrouded in darkness, had been hiding there for days, watching and waiting. The barn, usually a place of hard work and productivity, had become a den of malevolence. This was no random act of violence. The killer had been watching, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. He knew the family's routines, their vulnerabilities and their weaknesses. His patience was chilling, his intent clear. Armed with a mattock, a tool used for farming, the assailant made his way from the barn, his footsteps masked by the roar of the blizzard. The mattock, a symbol of the family's agrarian life, was now an instrument of death. The killer's movements were deliberate, his resolve unshakable. He entered the house, not through the locked front door, but through the unlocked back door, as if familiar with the layout. This familiarity suggested a disturbing possibility. The killer might have been someone the family knew, someone who had been inside the house before. One by one, the family members were lured to their deaths. The killer's method was cold and calculated, ensuring that no one would escape his wrath. The farmhouse, once a place of life and love, was now a scene of unimaginable horror. The killer began with the barn, where he surprised and murdered Andreas and Kazilia. The attack was swift and brutal, leaving no chance for resistance. The barn, a place of labor and sustenance, was now tainted with blood and violence. Their bodies, bearing the brunt of the mattock's brutal force, were dragged into the barn. The sight was gruesome, a testament to the killer's merciless nature. The barn floor, once covered in hay and dirt, was now stained with the lifeblood of the Gruber family. The killer then entered the main house, drawn by the soft cries of baby Joseph. The innocent sound, a symbol of new life and hope, was now a beacon for death. The killer's path of destruction was far from over, and the farmhouse would soon be engulfed in a silence even more profound than the blizzard outside.